Welcome to Not Entirely Unlike Tea with Christine Collins. Hey there, it's Christine Collins, and a fun topic for us today is why you shouldn't fall asleep while you're watching television or scrolling social media. Now, part of the reason behind this is because it does disrupt things like sleep hygiene. We know that there's an impact from looking at screens late at night before trying to go to sleep. There can be an impact on circadian rhythm and the sleep-wake cycle, hormone production, body temperature fluctuations. So there's a whole concept around sleep hygiene and good ideas or not so good ideas. But today we're going to focus on a slightly different take in regards to why television in particular or social media in particular are not the best path as you're winding down to sleep for the night. And that is related to the messaging that is built into television, ads, social media, and various different other types of media that have subliminal and ad messaging incorporated into them. Now, subliminal messages are basically different stimuli that are happening at the level below the conscious awareness. They're happening at a subconscious level and can have a tremendous amount of impact on our thought patterns and our belief systems. It can influence our feelings and our behaviors and the way that we look at the world. And the interesting thing about those moments right as you are falling asleep at night is that often as you are winding down, you are dipping down into some of the deeper brainwaves that we actually use in the hypnosis process, such as alpha brainwave and theta brainwave, in which you are much more suggestible than when you are in your fully awake and fully conscious states. So if you are in that state where you are deeply relaxed, you're kind of dozing off, you're sort of in that twilight in between being fully awake and fully asleep, you are highly suggestible, meaning that your watchdog mind, your guard dog that's usually skeptical and kind of on the lookout for threats and things like that, is relaxed. And as a result, you are more open to new ideas. You are more open to suggestions that are presented to you. And in the hypnosis process, we use this brainwave in order to transform things that have been a problem for you. So carrying around a belief that is negative and transitioning it into a more positive one. But in this scenario, we're talking about social media, television, advertisements, and essentially a whole lot of stimuli that is designed to get you to do something, to get you to buy something in a state in which you are very suggestible, which means that you're more prone to those subliminal messages that are embedded in various different types of advertising. And so if you are falling asleep watching television, or you are falling asleep while you're scrolling on your social media, you're kind of in that in-between awake and asleep state. And I know many of us, myself included, have had moments where perhaps you've dozed off and dropped your phone or hit yourself in the face with it or dropped it somewhere on the floor because you were dozing off. And so when you know you're in that state, where you are moving closer towards a state of sleep and you're in those deeper alpha and theta brainwaves, what you are consuming at that time may have a bigger impact on you than it would if you were in your fully alert and conscious state, where perhaps you're a little bit less vulnerable. That isn't to say that there's no vulnerability when you're fully awake and conscious, but you are at least a little bit more aware. And if you scroll across an ad and you notice the messages, you notice the signals, you can kind of make a conscious decision about whether or not to internalize them. But when you're dozing off and you're sleepy and you're in those deeper alpha and theta brainwaves, you are far more vulnerable and suggestible to the messages that are coming in. Now, things that are designed to be subliminal are typically presented briefly or at a low intensity, just below a level where it can be consciously perceived, and it can kind of prime the brain to have a certain thought pattern, and that ultimately may lead to a certain behavior or decision. There can also be a greater emotional influence, and part of what makes us suggestible is a connection to an emotional state. And so when it has that type of an impact, it can more heavily influence your mood as well as your decision making. And because messages at this level are kind of bypassing your conscious awareness, they may be more difficult for us to evaluate skeptically or critically, or even to resist internalizing the message. And so some of that information from watching television or scrolling social media may end up getting processed subliminally, particularly advertising or even other messages, right? So it's not necessarily an ad that could be problematic when you're in a vulnerable state. It could also be messages around social comparisons, feeling good enough, other content that might influence your self-perception or your sense of optimism and how you look at yourself and look at the world. Seeing something that is disturbing or upsetting could also have a negative impact. Now, one could say that all of these are various different forms of hypnosis, and typically they are intentional hypnosis on the part of a marketer who has a goal to get you to take an action, to do something, to believe something, to buy something ultimately. They are working to influence you. That is largely the purpose of social media, is to create influence over you. Now, those are types of hypnosis that can potentially be harmful. However, there are forms of hypnosis that can be very healing and very transformational, such as if you have been carrying around a self-perception that is very skewed and very negative. In particular, you have a belief system about yourself that's really unhelpful. It's holding you back. It's preventing you from success. It's preventing you from happiness and joy and being able to experience a sense of abundance within yourself, being able to experience a sense of confidence. You can use hypnosis in those contexts to work at and slowly shift and transform some of those negative beliefs into a more positive outlook. And so that is hypnosis at the transformational level, the healing level, the therapeutic level, allowing you to use it on purpose with intentions for yourself to move in a different direction designed by you. So rather than the situation of the advertisement where they are trying to push you or cajole you into a particular direction, this is hypnosis that allows you to move in the direction that you would like to go, where you decide the goal, you determine the path, you decide which way we're going from where we're standing right now. And it uses some of those same patterns being down in those deeper alpha and theta brain waves in order to create that transformation and shift some of those beliefs and perceptions into a more positive, optimistic route. And some of that is happening at a deeper level in terms of changes in the brain regions that can be observed in neuroimaging, for example, where there's increased activity in the anterior cingulate cortex associated with attention and emotional response, allowing for a state of very focused concentration for that transformation to happen. And then also reducing some of the activity in the default mode network, which is related to things like self-consciousness, self-doubt. So decreased activity there can help to contribute to a reduced sense of self-worry and concern, and just allow for more relaxation, more confidence, more self-assurance to start to unlock. So it can be a very powerful tool for reprogramming those pieces of the subconscious that have had a negative influence over your life and over your experience. It can create more emotional regulation, more confidence, more positive self-regard, and also help to increase neuroplasticity, which is your brain's ability to kind of grow and change and transform itself over time into better and better pathways. And that's built through things like the tools that are part of hypnosis. The repetition of it, listening to the same hypnosis audio repeatedly, helps to build that neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to lay down new neural pathways. Also, the emotional component is very important, and the relaxation component is very important, being in those deeply relaxed alpha and theta brainwaves. So it's just an opportunity for you to think about how you are managing your brain, your mindset, your own personal psychology in terms of whether you wish to allow it to be subject to things like those subliminal messages that may have a bigger impact on you as you're drifting off to sleep, and instead taking the reins and deciding on your own hypnosis. So rather than allowing social media or television or ads or various different messages that have been designed to have a behavioral influence over you in terms of getting you to buy something, you have the opportunity to activate your own hypnosis in terms of shifting it into something that is going to be more optimized for your success and for your overall feelings of happiness and satisfaction with your life at large. And you can also use it just before sleep to get yourself into the right frame of mind. I know I've done this for myself, and it's been a huge improvement in terms of things like bad dreams by doing little bits of hypnosis along with my sleep protocols, just kind of getting yourself wound down properly for bedtime, having that experience as the last stimuli that you do. So rather than scrolling on socials or dozing off in front of the television, listening to something with intention right before sleep can have a big impact. And of course, I've mentioned in other podcasts the value in listening first thing in the morning, kind of setting the tone for your day. So it really is figuring out where it fits best for you, because we're all different and everyone's morning and evening and midday all look very different depending on your lifestyle and your habits. So you have the opportunity to implement it really anywhere that it suits you. And if it's something that you are interested in learning more about, there is a special opportunity for podcast listeners to get my hypnosis membership, which includes my entire collection of hypnosis audios. And it's typically $7 a month. You can get your first month for just $1 as a podcast listener. So have a peek at that. It's at the very bottom of the show notes. And I hope you found this topic to be fun and insightful. And until we connect the next time, I wish you the most magical and creative rest of your day. Thanks for listening. This is Christine Collins at transformcreate.com.